Hello, welcome to finally our review of episodes 3 and 4 of The Woman in the Wall. I keep wanting to say The Women in the Wall. The Woman in the Wall, starring Ruth Wilson.
You already know we loved episode 1 and 2, and for me, after episode 2, it got even better.
Oh. It's always the worry though, isn't it? It's a bit like a second album. You get to episode 3, you worry that it's going to lose maybe its momentum, become a bit... Because sometimes you can have a really strong narrative device or premise, and then almost it's like a lot of stories lose confidence just in how strong the base of that is, and how strong the heart of that is, and how strong the characters all are, and then it all starts to get a bit stupid and wibbly wobbly. And this doesn't.
It gets tighter.
It does.
The acting is just blowing our minds.
It only gets tighter.
And the way and the twists and turns of the story, to be honest, and also for me, the education. You know, I mean, I watched the Judi Dench film and I kind of remember it, but this is really graphic in its telling of the story, isn't it?
I think it's also helped by the fact that it's not taking an incredibly sort of, not that it is a serious subject, and it's incredibly serious, the implications and ramifications of what's going on, but it manages to do that really, really clever thing of having a lightness of touch and an ability to flip back to really quite comedic moments, which if you think of, I'm being grossly generalising it, but if you think of what certainly I like about the Irish and Irish culture is the ability to almost mock death and trauma and tragedy with great humour and lyricism.
It's that dark humour that comes out of tragedy, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely.
I think we're both drawn to that.
Yeah. So what I like at the heart of it is a whodunit. Who killed, and question mark, is she dead? The woman in the wall. This strange, curious
Don't even ask
finding.
that question mark now, because we didn't have the question mark in episode 3.
We did.
We didn't.
At the beginning.
We always believed she was in the wall.
So we have the situation where she's found a dead person in a house. Well, okay, before we get into any of this, the cleverest thing about this show that I really like
Oh,
is...
you're going to be able to say the cleverest?
Yeah, I think
this
the
is very
cleverest.
clever. Are you sure? You're going to commit yourself to the cleverest in the show?
Why are you suggesting I'm incapable
Because
of...
there's a lot of very clever things, so I'm just wondering what you've put to the top of the list.
Oh, right, okay. Well, yeah, I am going to say what I think the cleverest thing is. The cleverest thing about this whole drama is that it has the ability at any point, due to this device of Ruth Wilson's character sleepwalking and there being this unreliable sense of reality, I think the cleverest thing about it is everything could change within one shot or one scene.
Without it being Dallas style,
exactly.
I stepped out of the shower and it was all a
Exactly.
dream. It is all completely rooted in truth.
But that's a great narrative liberator.
I actually find it often very exhausting to watch because she plays so utterly brilliantly the exhaustion and the driving and the pushing through. That bit when she nicks the line of coke.
Oh, and the delusion, yeah, the way she just marched in and took it. Yeah, but
That's the only thing that was not rooted in truth. There is no cokehead that will come out of a toilet, put the line out, and then, unless she was trying to wind her up, she did it.
I think she was luring her. I think she did it on purpose.
She was luring her.
The coke addict in the shop, I believe, and the horse mater, the guy who gets his horses to have sex, the horse handler.
We need to say
Well, yeah, you know. Anyway, the horse handler and
the
her.
man that makes the horses.
You know, they went round and he was talking about them having. See, well, maybe I'm imagining all of that.
Do you mean the man with the garage?
The man with the horse. The horseman. The horseman and the woman in the shop are connected.
No, he's the garage man.
He might have a garage, but he's also the horseman.
He's the garage man who's pissed off when she set fire to the car in his garage.
But he has horses.
But when were they having sex?
They weren't
Mark,
having
you've
sex.
added this in, and you're going to look like a weirdo.
Hang on a minute.
Was there horse sex?
No!
In episode 3?
No, there was not horse
Well,
sex.
why are you talking about sex?
He's the horse handler. He breeds. He's a horse breeder.
Right.
That's what I
Okay,
meant.
we've
That's what I
got
meant. I
that.
didn't say
Jesus
for a minute
Christ.
that he was actually, we saw horse
You
sex.
can keep all that in. Didn't even happen.
Right. Anyway, I think it all pivots around woman in shop and horse handler, horse breeder. They are, I feel that this woman that has been found, that we at this point believe that Ruth Wilson has buried in her wall, cemented into her wall, which, let's face it, after a while would smell. They
I've said that all the
instrumental in
way
this.
along, haven't I? So when's it going to start smelling?
Yeah, you have. And there we go.
I want her to be alive.
Who?
Hang on.
The woman in the
I
wall?
said it
or
too early.
You've just revealed something else.
Take that bit.
We have to do these reviews straight
But
after the
these
shows,
are
babe.
reveals. People have seen it.
No, I know, but
They know.
we're trying to...
They already know.
They
Do you
already
know?
Do you know? Yeah, they already know. Okay.
What if they've only watched episode 3?
That's what I mean. What's the point of us talking about episode 3 if we don't get to... This is the most ridiculous fucking review of anything I've ever come across. Anyway, The long and the short of it is, there's some massive cover-up. There's lots of missing babies. Are the babies dead? Did the horrendous nuns, one of which was played by the wonderful Frances Tomelty, is it?
She's not paid a nun. She's the drug addict.
She's not!
Oh my God, she's Mother Superior.
She's Mother Superior!
What am I doing?
What is going on?
She is fucking brilliant as Mother Superior. She terrified me in episode 3 or 4. I can't remember which one.
Anyway, she's almost one of those nuns that doesn't walk, she just floats. So anyway, in episode 3, all around this, so it's who done it, who killed... So essentially, who killed the woman? It's beginning to look like the woman who was one of the nuns in the original house that the poor old Ruth Wilson's character, lost her child in, and we saw that scene where she dobbed in another friend so she could have a cuddle with her baby. That other friend, at the end of episode 2, as we knew, has killed herself. So the beginning of episode 3 was at the funeral wake. She takes the rosary, she hurls it in the bin, Ruth Wilson. There's a lot of religiosity in here. There's a lot of Catholic, for me, I put Catholic guilt, man. So much about this is threaded through with the guilt of Catholicism, right down to the wonderful Simon Delaney, who plays, the head of police. You can feel him wrestling with his inherited sense of Catholic responsibility. He's a civic man, he's a caring man.
And I don't know if we find this out in 3 or 4, but we start to see where he may have been involved.
Yeah.
And I think it's just played so beautifully. That's what I mean. It is so unpredictable. The writing is just so good, isn't it? You never know. We're constantly going, oh my God, what? It's just full of surprises all the way through.
And at the heart of it as well, we're not talking about Daryl McCormack. Daryl McCormack, who's playing the Dublin cop who's been brought in, the urban cop who's investigating the murder of the original priest. Now the sort of disappearance of this woman who we know's in the wall and all that kind of stuff. He's in there, and he brings a really deep, compassionate aspect to this, because of course he's discovered, and we discover across these 2 episodes, that he was born in one of these laundries. And so he's interrogating his origin story, where he came from. You've got Lorna, played by Ruth Wilson, who's interrogating where her baby's gone. Is her baby dead? Is her baby alive? What awful thing happened to it?
So you've got this parallel of them both searching. But I'm still so confused as to why he's so angry that he's dead. He's so angry about the priest. He's determined to find the person that killed the priest, and yet we totally believe at this point that he was abused by the priest.
But we don't necessarily believe he was abused by that priest. I think that priest, he very much
it's always that priest that's chasing him down the tunnel.
It's not, it's another one.
Is it?
I think so. I always feel that...
Well, he has got a limp.
I feel that what he's got going on there is he feels a great sense that, regardless of whether this priest was bad with other people, that this priest was kind to him, no? No?
I don't think so. Why is he running away from him? Totally terrified.
Yeah, but he's running away from one and he's running towards another in those scenes, isn't he?
But also...
Have I got that wrong?
Listen, the one who's dead was never kind to anyone. He murdered babies. So he's not going to have been great with Daryl, is he?
Well,
And
Daryl is in that terrible, terrible place that the victims of abuse are in, where they both idolise, protect, are attached to and connected to their abuser.
I think that his anger is about finding out. All the way through, I thought it's about his being abused, but he sensed that he had the answer to where his mother was, because we saw that scene, didn't he, when he asked about his mum? He said, no, you don't want to know about that. Do you remember? So it's like he died before I could get that information.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of his driving force. I could be wrong.
I mean, I think anyone who has removed from their lives the opportunity to know where they came from and who they came from, that very powerful scene between him and his stepmother, beautifully played by Chizzy Akudulu.
She was so good.
She was again that wonderful underplaying of a scene, and it just sat. You just sat. And one thing I really love about this show is it lets scenes just sit. It's not rushing on to the next sort of narrative bit of cleverness. It's not actually trying to be narratively. I mean, narratively clever. Little moments like there was a scene where Ruth Wilson was walking through the village, the town. There were the photographs of the missing woman, and under normal circumstances, this kind of thing wouldn't work, and it would be a bit eggy. But the fact that the face, the way the face on the posters was looking, and it was looking at her, and then it was looking to the right, and then it was looking back at her, and then she would appear. These apparitions and these ghostly appearances. Let's not forget Simon Delaney's character's brilliant line. We don't believe in ghosts, but it doesn't mean we're not afraid of them. That line almost sits up there with some of the best Game of Thrones lines. This is a ghostly. These aren't ghosts, and yet they're scary. But are they ghosts? There are so many ghosts in this. It's wonderful.
I love the relationship that's building between Ruth and Daryl as well.
Yes.
They're both totally tortured and desperate for information. And everybody wants him to turn out to be her child. We're like, well, first of all, he's too old. Secondly, he's black. And third, he's a boy.
But she might have had a
But
feeling.
you
someone's
keep
got
going,
it.
oh, it's going to be her child.
It's still feasible.
I think it's not feasible that unless we never saw the real child of hers. But sidebar, Daryl McCormack and Simon Delaney need a detective series of their own. Because
Inspector
there is an
Morse.
insatiable appetite. You know, we all go, oh God, not another police drama. But there is an insatiable appetite, and the appetite can be quelled. The thirst can be quelled with these two because they are just
sensational.
fantastic.
Sensational. What was
but you've got to take the writer because as well, the writing is fantastic.
I mean, and their ability, but they both give depth. They give so much depth to funny scenes like this. There was a moment.
360-degree humans.
There was a moment in episode 4, was it, or episode 2? I can't remember again, where Sam Delaney's character was sat with Ruth and they were just talking about the numbers she was saying. There were 290 missing. That might be something you want to investigate. And it was such a deep, meaningful reservoir of trauma that was shared between him and Ruth.
When she said, you brought her back, didn't she? When she said, you brought her back. When she escaped, and when she said, have you got any idea what the nuns did to her for running away? And he looked. See, this is the difference between acting and telling the truth. He wasn't acting, he was just in the pain, didn't hardly move a muscle. He was just in the pain of knowing that he was culpable in that.
I will forever trot out the line that John Hurt said. He says, why does everyone say that we're involved in lying? All actors do is tell the fucking truth.
Oh, good actors.
Good actors. And that's what's happening here throughout it, all over the place by everyone.
Brilliant connections between all the actors. The director has done a great job.
And also,
because there's such cohesion between in the cast, isn't there?
Absolutely. Let's just talk quickly about.
Sometimes you can watch something and think, are you all in a different show? And you don't feel that. For a second.
Yeah, you don't feel everyone's coming on. With this, you feel like everyone's coming off the same creative hymn sheet.
It's like being in a play where they've worked together.
It's a company. Exactly. Everything's moving in sort of coordination with each other, synchronicity and all that kind of stuff. But let's just talk briefly about, obviously, the nature or the way in which it states on the death certificate, question marks over whether the baby did die, Ruth Wilson's baby, but the shivering for 2 days.
This affected us both so badly. I said to Mark, when the girls were little and they were cold, even now, it was just like, oh my God, cold and hungry are the two words as a parent you cannot bear. You just can't bear it. And you take everything off. Oh no, they're still cold. Oh, their hands. Oh, they're... So just the genius in reading that on the birth certificate, I shivered to death.
Oh, don't.
Shivered to death. Oh
just as a description.
Just now I've got the goosebumps. I've got the horrors.
Doesn't it say 2 days shivering?
Shivering. Shivered to fucking death.
Bloody hell.
And then later, when Frances Tomaty, the Mother Superior, says, well, it was your fault.
Oh, don't.
You couldn't recognise your baby. I wanted to smash her face in.
But you've got the total equivalence, because when Daryl McCormack meets that other priest who's alive, and he just turns to Daryl McCormack and says, you ungrateful boy. And the fact that Daryl McCormack was put in something called the reject room.
At the end of every episode, I am always a little traumatised, I have to say, because of the injustice and the lack of validation for these people that went through this, and I'm just so
the cruelty,
shocked that it was still done in 1990.
I can't get my head around the extent of cruelty that was at work in these places. It's just breathlessly frightening. Two other things that I'm getting sort of references out to as well from this, which I think is really good. Anyone who's read The Yellow Wallpaper, I'm getting a lot of that from Ruth Wilson's performance within that set, within her flat.
I wanted you to
play the lead, which is a story about a woman essentially going mad in a room. It's very brief, very short. But Ruth Wilson in that room, and then of course we can reveal now that in that room where the cement is, she goes smashing through the wall. And again, are we in magic realist territory? Is this real? Has the woman behind the wall, gone away? Is she gone? Was she ever there in the first place? Was it an hallucination? And to what extent has potentially Ruth Wilson been framed? And then I thought a really neat thing was beginning to creep in, where I thought she was going to admit, or possibly could still admit to, saying she has killed.
She has
killed this woman in order to negotiate some kind of information plea deal, if you like, to get knowledge on where her child actually is. And in which
Simon
case,
Delaney was great in the the cop, when he came in, and that rage that he had against Daryl McCormack, because he's always trying to protect these women in the way that he didn't and couldn't when they were girls. It's always very easy to look back, isn't it, retrospectively? But choices.
Yeah.
What choice did I have? He said, no, their families wouldn't have taken them back. Where was I going to send them? They would have frozen on the streets.
Absolutely.
Also, when we are judging these very cruel nuns, as somebody pointed out to us on a live recently, many of them have been taken in themselves and been treated and abused, and they were unwanted. So who's to say that the Mother Superior had grown up in there, having been abandoned by her mother, and actually had pure hate?
Hurt people hurting people.
Hurting other people. So,
and I think you're absolutely right. Please you said that, because Simon Delaney's performance is one in which you can feel him with almost all the paperweights in an office, with all the papers flying around, trying to keep the order as best as he can, knowing how far the disorder can go without everything going up into the sky.
And I don't feel like we've quite said enough about Ruth Wilson.
Oh,
bloody hell, Ruth!
Christ.
You're tearing our guts out and whipping them around, and then slapping us over the head with them, and then putting them back in.
And at the same time, even though most of your trauma is driving you clearly to an early grave in a state of insanity and what have you, I want you as my mate. I'd like to, do you know what I mean? I'd like to take her character with me somewhere.
Because I get so involved in, like, when she's accused of being a bad mother, that Mother Superior knows every time she can knock her down. And of course, the Mother Superior is knocking her own mother, who left her there, that made her this evil witch. Well, that's what I've written. That's my backstory. And I just want to. Who would you want as your mother in the world? You would want Lorna Brady.
Yes, of course you would. Of course
fighting,
you would.
brave. She's ripping herself to pieces.
As long as she got a good night's sleep.
Yes, she does.
She does need a good night's sleep.
Someone give her a Valium.
That's what I'm beginning to think.
I suppose you still sleep.
Yeah, you still sleepwalk. And finally, can I just say, I really like the way in which they very cleverly managed to take an Edgar Allan Poe story, The Telltale Heart, which is about someone who buries someone under the floorboards, thinks they hear the heartbeat, and it drives them mad. And it was a wonderfully powerful scene. Really nice to get some sort of almost classic horror tropes, and none of them are sort of forced. It feels incredibly natural.
I love the light coming in through the window with the cross on the wall.
Yeah, you spotted that. And the other one I really liked was there was a moment which I thought was going to be the end of an episode where I think Ruth was in the car, and did you see the neon lights all just closed off behind her? So suddenly it became a set. Outside became a set. Those little touches. If we could have more of that in any drama, it would be
deliciously good. Just quickly, the things that I want cleared up. What is Neve up to, Philippa Dune? Because she ain't just what she says she is.
Right.
The pregnant woman who's helping them. There's something on there.
Yeah.
Hilda Faye playing Amy, the drug addict. What is she up to? Because at this point, we both think it's her that's murdering and pillaging.
And who the hell is Ardal O'Hanlon from Father Ted, who's in prison? Who was he if he wasn't married to Thingy?
And who the hell is the woman that turned up and was scary as shit? I think she was a journalist.
Yeah. Well, who's he then? Who claims he was her wife, the missing woman's husband?
He is the missing woman's
he is
husband.
the missing woman. Oh.
That woman isn't the wife.
Oh my God, it's Ruth Wilson. Quick, go get the door.
Go.